Chapter 15. Abby was still in a daze as she watched Zoran talk with his two brothers and his head of security. She was sitting on Zoran's lap. She blushed profusely when they walked into what appeared to be a conference room and found three huge men staring at her like she was a tasty morsel. It hadn't helped when she tried to move to sit away from everyone, only to find herself firmly entrenched between Zoran's muscular thighs. She wiggled, trying to get free, until she felt Zoran move his hand between her thighs. When she tried to move his hand, he took his other one and slid it up under her shirt. "What are you doing?" Abby whispered furiously, trying not to look at the three other men. "If you insist on wiggling your ass on my cock, I will take you right here now," Zoran murmured in her ear. "The others will see you." Abby glanced under her lashes at the men who were watching with interest. "They wish to see how your species responds. They want to watch as I take you," Zoran said huskily. Abby froze in horror. From the feel of Zoran's cock under her ass, he seemed turned on by the idea of others watching as he took her. But Abby didn't feel the same. She began shaking as fear set in. "Zoran, please don't," Abby begged. "Most of my species are very private about what we do. I'm very private. I don't think I could ever forgive you if you did." Zoran frowned as he felt Abby begin to shake in his arms. He had not meant to frighten her. His species found nothing wrong with the enjoyment of watching others enjoying themselves. He would not offer to share Abby, as she was his true mate, and his dragon would not share. His brothers asked if they could learn how to please a human female, as both expressed an interest in two of the females who were taken. He had not been offended. He found it rewarding to watch his brothers with other females, often suggesting ways to pleasure them. He would enjoy doing things to Abby they might suggest. "It is not unusual for my species to enjoy watching others as they seek pleasure. It often heightens our own," Zoran said, trying to calm Abby. If anything, her shaking became worse. "Zoran, all is well with your mate?" Traylon asked, curiously. "I smell fear on her." Zoran pulled Abby tighter into his arms, frowning as she buried her face in his neck and clung to him. "Her species does not allow others to see them when they pleasure each other. Abby says it is a private matter between the mated pair." "But," Keelan began, frustrated. Jarek leaned forward. "If the female is uncomfortable with my presence, I can leave." Abby peeked out from Zoran's neck. Tears glittered on her eyelashes. "It's not just you," Abby said softly. "Most people, humans, are very private about sharing their bodies. We don't walk around naked, we definitely don't make love in front of other people, and we don't share our bodies. Not all humans, but most find it offensive to even ask them to do so." Abby looked up at Zoran sadly. "I'm afraid we didn't have much time to get to know each other. Otherwise you would know this. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to our cabin. I'm not feeling very well." Zoran frowned down at Abby. He could feel her pain, and it confused him. She was looking very pale. Perhaps she reacted badly because she was still tired. Zoran felt a wave of disgust when he thought about how much she had been through and how selfish he had been with his own desires. Nodding, Zoran stood and picked Abby up in his arms. "I will return shortly. I wish Abby to rest more." Abby didn't say anything as Zoran carried her back to their cabin. When he laid her down on the bed, she rolled over, giving him her back, and closed her eyes. She refused to cry in front of him. Zoran sat next to her for a moment, rubbing her back, before he leaned over, giving her a kiss on her neck. "I will return soon. Rest, and we will eat when you awake." Zoran said, resting his hand on Abby's hip for a moment before he stood and left the room. Abby listened as the door closed behind him. Only then did she let the tears fall. What had she gotten herself into? Zoran's world and hers were so different. How was she ever going to fit in? It was more than just the sex in front of people. It was losing everything she had ever known and going into a world where she didn't know anything. What would happen if Zoran decided he no longer wanted her? What would happen if he wanted to have sex with other women? Abby knew she could never live with him if he did that. But where would that leave her? On an alien planet, away from everyone she had ever known and loved, and away from her beloved mountain. Abby cried until she was so exhausted she couldn't keep her eyes open. Slowly, sleep claimed her, giving her a measure of peace. Zoran glanced across the table, worried, as Abby picked at her food again, pushing it from one side of the plate to the other, never eating more than a bite or two. She was losing weight, and dark shadows appeared under her eyes. She seldom talked to Zoran unless he talked to her first. They had been traveling for over 2 weeks, and she became quieter the closer they got to Valdier. He reached out for the symbiot on her wrists to see if they would tell him anything, but as soon as he connected with them, they withdrew from him. Slamming his hand down on the table, he watched as Abby jumped. "What is wrong? You must tell me, Abby. I watch each day as you fade further and further away from me." Abby refused to look Zoran in the eye. "I've never turned you away." And she hadn't. She couldn't. Every time Zoran touched her, she felt the waves of heat build inside her, and she could no more turn away from him than stop breathing. "You let me love you, but it is only to your body," Zoran said harshly. "You do not eat. You do not talk. You barely sleep. Why? You refuse to let me take you to medical, and even your symbiot will not answer my concerns. I need you to tell me what is wrong." Abby felt a tear drop onto her hand. "Nothing is wrong, Zoran. I'm just tired, that's all. Just tired." Zoran stood up, went around the table, knelt down, and gently lifted Abby's chin to look him in the eye. "You say that, Abby, but you do not sleep. You think I do not know that you pretend to when I hold you at night? Tell me, Elila. Let me help you." Abby stared into Zoran's eyes for a moment before she replied. "We are so different. We literally come from 2 different worlds." Abby laid her palm on Zoran's cheek. "I've lost everything I've ever known, everything I've ever loved. I've even lost who I am." Fear made Zoran's eyes flash with anger. "You are mine, Abby. I have claimed you. You will learn to adapt. You will learn to love my world, my people, and accept who you are now." Abby shook her head tiredly. She had thought of nothing else but what she could do over the last 2 weeks. "Zoran, I don't belong here. I belong back on my mountain." Zoran stood up, trembling at the thought of losing Abby. He had to get away. Walking toward the cabin door, he turned. "You are never going back, Abby. You will learn to accept what has happened. If you do not start eating, I will force you. If you do not sleep, I will medicate you so you get rest. You will learn that you are no longer the person you were." Abby watched as Zoran stormed out of their cabin before replying. "Oh, Zoran, I'm not sure I'm strong enough to survive." "I do not know what to do, Keelan," Zoran said as he nursed a stiff drink in his hand. "She is fading away right before my eyes. She doesn't eat, doesn't sleep.
hardly talks to me. She wants me to take her back to her mountain."
Keelan swallowed his drink before pouring another glass. He was already well into his cups by the time Zoran found him. He picked up the glass and took another big gulp before replying.
"I am ready to take them all back," Keelan slurred. "I have had it with her. Them. They're bossy, opinionated, stubborn," Keelan hiccuped, "and beautiful, and too damn sexy."
Zoran frowned, but before he could reply, Trelin came in, growling under his breath.
"I need a drink."
Before Zoran or Keelan could say a word, Trelin took the bottle of potent wine and started drinking straight from it, not even bothering with a glass. Wiping a hand across his mouth, he growled,
"I'm going to kill me a tiny human female with red and purple hair. I'm going to rip her apart, burn her to ash, and then put her back together again so I can do it over and over until she begs for mercy."
Zoran looked at both his brothers. He had never seen them like this.
"What is wrong?" "Wrong, wrong, he asks," Trelin growled, pointing the bottle at Zoran. "I'll tell you what is wrong. You landed on a damn planet of females who would drive any male to distraction and then act like it is the male's fault. No, you couldn't have landed on a planet where our symbiotes would want to kill the female and our dragons would find them repulsive. No, you had to land on a planet where my symbiot is so infatuated with the female it does every damn thing she asks, regardless of what I say. And my dragon is so horny it is about to disembowel me if I don't claim her before another male does. Only I can't catch her long enough to do so." "You too?" Keelan looked blurry-eyed at Trelin. "My female refuses to even acknowledge me as a male. All she does is quote her name, rank, and some awful number I can't remember. She insists I take her home. My symbiote is sleeping with her like it is her new pet, sending me images of her stroking and scratching it and talking nonsense while me and my dragon get to suffer."
Keelan grunted as his head fell forward.
"She even said if I wanted to stay in my dragon form, she would scratch my belly, but she wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole."
"What of the other females?" Zoran asked, confused. What was happening to his brothers?
"The one named Ariel stays with her sister Carmen. She is the female who was almost killed. She is a vicious one. One of the males from medical wanted her to mate with him. She knocked him out. They have been moved to their own cabin under guard," Trelin said, taking another deep drink.
"Why are your females not under guard?" Zoran asked, as he finished off his drink and reached for another bottle of wine.
"The one named Trisha is under guard in my cabin," Keelan slurred. "Unfortunately, I can't get in because she has my symbiote attack me and drag me out every time I try to enter. Wait until I get her home. I am going to send my symbiote to play, and as soon as it is gone, bam, she is mine."
Keelan giggled at the thought of finally having the female defenseless. Trelin sighed heavily.
"Kara has already hacked into the computer systems, engineering, communications, the environmental system, and our training programs. She had the men doing something called the electric slide in the training simulator yesterday. The woman drives me nuts. I swear she never sleeps, never shuts up, and gets into everything."
Maybe Abby would feel better if she were to talk to some of the other females. Perhaps if she knew she was not alone, that others of her kind were here with her, she would feel better about staying, Zoran said, perking up.
"A dinner. I will set up a dinner for all the women. Notify Mandra to set it up. Invite as many males and mated couples as you can. Have Mother there as well. We arrive on Valdier tomorrow. Maybe if the females see that our world can be similar to theirs, they will be more receptive." "Oh, joy. We get to be humiliated in front of everyone," Keelan said sourly.
Zoran felt better as he returned to his cabin. It would explain much if Abby was fearful of being the only one of her kind, but she wasn't. There were 4 other females, and she knew them. Perhaps, if she knew that, it would help her. Opening the door of the cabin, he moved in quietly, walking over to where Abby sat, looking out into the blackness of space. "It is beautiful, isn't it?" Zoran asked softly, looking at Abby. Abby smiled sadly. "I was raised to believe there was one God who created our world. Even that is something I can no longer hold on to." Zoran turned Abby to face him. His heart was breaking at the look of bleakness in her eyes. "You can hold on to me, Abby. I love you very much, Elila." Abby looked into Zoran's eyes. "What does Elila mean?" "There is not an exact translation, but it means my heart." "You are my heart, Abby," Zoran said, softly brushing a light kiss across Abby's lips. "Feel my heart. It beats for you." Abby looked at her hand lying against Zoran's chest, right over his heart. A single tear coursed down her cheek. She loved him so much it hurt. She was torn between knowing she had to leave him and knowing she couldn't. She felt lost. She felt the warmth through his shirt, the soft thump of his heart. "Now, feel yours," Zoran said, taking her other hand and putting it on her chest. Abby looked up in wonder as she felt both their hearts beating at the same time. "How?" "I told you. We are one now. I cannot live without you, Abby. Just as you can no longer live without me," Zoran whispered against her hair. Abby sniffed, trying to not cry. "Oh, Zoran, I love you very much. I just don't know. I don't know anything anymore." "No, I love you, Abby," Zoran said, wrapping his arms around her tightly. "Tomorrow we will be on Valdier. You will see how beautiful it is. I have much to teach and show you." Abby leaned into Zoran's warm body. She didn't want to worry anymore. She just wanted to feel his warm body wrapped around hers and feel safe in his arms. A soft sigh escaped her as her body finally gave in to all the stress and emotional duress she had been suffering over the last few weeks, and she fell asleep in Zoran's arms.